Welcome csc103 class. I'm going to go over exercise 6b. This was our Warren logo. We're actually going to create a vector version of this logo. And before I copy this, I'm going to go back to Pixlr because this is where we actually use vector. And I'll click on free vector editor. And I'd recommend that you make an account and log in. It's free. It doesn't take long. So I'm going to make a new file if this comes up. And this is what it should look like. And this is our vector kind of page area here. These are our tools over here. We have drawing tools here to make basic shapes, circles, round cornered rectangles, squares. Pen tool, we're going to use this one. We're going to use a circle tool, and we're not going to use any text. We're actually just going to use a pen tool to draw shapes, and we're going to make some colors. So this will be pretty easy. We're going to be making a vector logo out of a bitmap logo or out of a raster logo. We're going to take it right from here. And in class, we downloaded this logo right from the website. What we can actually do, if you right click on this thing, you could actually just copy the image. And then if you go back to vector, Control V or Command V on a Mac, and you should be able to paste it right here. And it'll create its own layer called image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out a little bit and then just make it nice and big. Drag the corner, but hold Shift. Because if you don't, you're going to kind of stretch it, and we don't want to stretch it. You want to make sure you hold Shift and then make it nice and big. And you got to watch because the screen will kind of reflow, but I want to make this so it's kind of the main part of the screen like that. We're not going to do any of this. We're just going to do this logo. We're going to kind of trace over it. So we're going to be on layers on top of this, and when we draw shapes, they'll make their own new layer over top of this. So that's all I need first. And actually, if I have this in place here, I can lock this. If you look real close, it's kind of, you know, very gray there, but if you go, there's a little lock icon there. You could lock it. That way you won't accidentally grab it or do anything to it when you work over top of it. So that's the first part. So just copy and paste this right here. And again, in class we downloaded and uploaded it. We actually uploaded an image this way, but we didn't have to do that. But you can do that. You could trace anything from the web, and you could just kind of upload it from here. We've done tracing exercises of animals and stuff like that. But anyway, back to this thing. What I'm going to do is I'll zoom in a little bit. So this kind of takes up my screen here, and we're just going to trace over the circle, which is pretty easy. Use the ellipse tool and just start making a circle. Now if it's covered up or if it has a fill, and again I just kind of dragged or drug in a diagonal, and I'm going to take away the fill color. If you go over to background, they don't call it fill, they just call it background, so just uncheck that. And I'm going to give it a color, a little different color here. I'll put, or make sure you click border so you can see a border. I'll make it something that I could see. I'll make it like a green. And I'll just go up a little thicker so I could see it a little bit. It's a little hard to see on here, but it's there. And I just want to, it was actually the same shape anyway, so that's all I have to do with it because we're just making a circle. And then we're eventually going to color it. And actually, this is probably the easier thing to do. Well, I don't know if it's easier or not, but if you turn off this, you don't have anything there, you won't see it there. And then if you click this on, it makes a fill, so you almost have to move it to the side. And if you click on this color thing and use the eyedropper, you could select a color here with the eyedropper and then kind of put it back. And then if you can't see it, just kind of turn it off, turn this back on, then kind of move it in place, but you'll still have the color here that you could just turn on again. And you could even use your arrows on your keyboard to just kind of nudge it in place. And that's all you're going to need. And then I'll turn this off and I'll put this on. So you might say, well, how am I going to see the other stuff? Well, that's easy. We're going to go here and we're going to turn there's a little eyeball there. We're going to click on that, and that'll kind of temporarily turn off the ellipse layer. And then we're going to be done with that. And I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to put it on later. But then I'm going to zoom in here a little bit more, and I'm just going to trace this W. And I'm going to use the pen tool. And this is the pen tool. And I'm going to click here, and I'm just going to start at one of these corners, and I'll just click, and you can see it'll try to stay kind of in a straight line, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to go up there, and you can see when you keep it straight at the top, it makes kind of a straight blue line there. And I'll click, and I'm just clicking, and it's kind of connecting, kind of what we did with the polygonal lasso in Pixlr. And then I'm clicking, and then I'm going to go all the way down here and try to make a W, because this is actually made out of W's that kind of meet. So I'm going to kind of go down here, and you could fix it after the fact. So if it's not perfect, you can move these things around. And I'll click down here, and you can see if I get it right even with that one, that's a good place to click. And I'll just come over here and keep it straight again, and then finish up here. And if any of those things aren't perfect, you need to move them around. You just click on the shape and then double click on the shape right on the edge. Since there's no fill, and you don't want to fill when you're drawing these things, you want to double click and then you'll see the anchor point. So if you had to move these around, you could move them around, but I think what I have looks pretty good right now. If I had to move this in, you know, slightly, you could do that. But again, this doesn't have to be perfect. And we're just going to be duplicating this. We're not going to keep drawing W's again. We'll just keep duplicating. So once I have this one, I'll kind of click so I see the whole bounding box going around the W. And then I'm going to duplicate, and I can right click right on it and say duplicate. And if you notice, it says Command D. On a Mac, it's Command D. On Windows, it would be Control D to duplicate it. So I'll duplicate it, and I'll move one down here, and I'll move it down here, and I'll flip it. And they actually have a little flip icon here. It says flip vertical. It gets flipped vertically, and then if it's not in place, you can see even if I move it, I could get it lined up with the one above it, and I think that's okay. And now I have two here, even though it looks a little off, so I'm going to move it over a little bit. And then I'll copy another one, and I'll just click on this and do Command D or Control D if you're on Windows, which you may be. And then move this over here. Now I have to rotate it. If you go to the corner, you'll get a little rotate icon, and if you hold Shift, it'll kind of lock in once it gets to 90 degrees. And then you could just move that over here, and I'll just put that into place. And I'll nudge it down a little with my keyboard arrow. So I kind of get these little corners of the W's lined up, and I'll move over a little, and then I'll duplicate it one more time while this one's still selected. I'll do Control D, and there's another one, and you can see this one, just like the other one, I'm going to flip it, and there's that icon, and this will flip the other way. And there it is, and then I'll just move it in place, and I'll look for those kind of guides to see if I have it lined up with the other one, and I do, and that looks pretty good. I'll just nudge it down slightly so that all these corners are kind of matched up here, and that's pretty much all you need. So that didn't take very long at all. Now, once you're done, you've got to click on these and then fill this, and then make sure they're filled with white. And you could go up here and make that white. Get it as far out of the corner as you can, and then take off the border, and then do the same. So you should be able to click on one and then hold Shift, and you got to click on the edge when they have no fill, and I'll hold Shift and see if I could get this one too. And now 3 of them are selected, so then all I have to do is go and click on here and give it a fill color, or background they call it, and then make sure it's white. Move that all the way over to white, and then this one, uncheck that, and that's pretty much what you need. And now what I'll do, and you can see all these paths here are the W's, and you could even rename these. The ellipse is the circle. I'm going to put that back on, and there's the circle. And actually these 3 need to be whiter. They look kind of off-white, so I'll go back and make sure that this white color is all the way in the corner, so it's a full complete white. And that's all I need. I could turn off, I could go to the eyeball here of image and turn off the image, and you'll want to make sure you do that, especially before you turn it in. You don't want to see that image in the background, so make sure it could still be there. You don't have to delete it, but make sure you turn on that eyeball thing. That means it's hidden. So it's going to look like that, and what you have is nice, clean vector artwork that can be saved as an SVG. They don't let you save it as an EPS from Vector because it's a free program, but SVG can be made into an EPS, and that looks pretty good. And or you can actually download it as an SVG or download it as a PNG file, which again is not a vector file, but it will save with transparency. So when you want to save this, you can do 2 things. First of all, give it a name. I'll go to File Settings. I'll click here, and I'll just call it WCCC logo, and I'll put a V here because I'm recording a video, and I'll do Save File Name. And if you can't save it, it may be because you didn't log in. If you tried to do it without logging in or without making an account, it won't let you save it. So that's saved. So then if something happens and you don't get to turn it in, but when you're ready to turn it in, what you can do is you could come here to export, and you can see you could download it. You could download it as a PNG, a JPEG, which you wouldn't want. You'd either want to probably download it as a PNG would be the easiest thing. If you try to send an SVG through My Warn, it's not going to work, but a PNG will work if you wanted to do that, but you don't even have to do that. All you have to do is go here to copy and just copy this URL, and then go back to coursework, and I'll go down here and I'll just look for, I guess it's under Unit 3. If you go here and add comment, you just click on the insert link, and you could just paste the link in there, and make sure you hit new window so that when I click on it, I don't have to use the back button, because that helps me out. You can even change the text to display if you want to just call this, you know, WCCC logo. You don't have to. If you get confused or whatever, then just leave it alone. But this is the URL, this is the text that displays, and make sure it says new window. And I'll hit OK, and I'll hit save. And now when I come to view it, I could just click on here and go, oh yeah, wow, that looks great. They did a nice job. And you know, if you messed anything up, you could go back here and just close this up. If you messed it up, you forgot to turn this layer off, or you forgot to turn the other layer on, or anything like that. You know, you left it like that for some reason, you know, and you went to go to export it and it looked like that. You know, just X out of that and make sure you turn that layer off. And that should be all that you need. And you know, you could certainly, that's pretty simple, but just gives you a little bit of a feel of using the pen tool and creating vector art like we would do in Illustrator. This isn't Illustrator, but it has some of those tools, and this is kind of what we do in there. So the straight lines make it a little bit easier. So anyway, that's EX6B, or at least what we're calling it this semester, and that's WCCC logo. And again, all you have to do is just send me the URL from Vector.